We are going to dive into some deeply chilling, fully documented supernatural encounters reported by Korean celebrities. If you're a fan of the paranormal, or you just love a really good urban legend, you are going to be absolutely fascinated by the data we're looking at today. We're tracking a pattern of anomalies here that completely transcend your typical run-of-the-mill ghost stories, and they're targeting some of the absolute biggest names in the Korean entertainment industry.
So as an investigator going through these files, I want you to put yourself in my shoes for a second and really imagine the sheer dread here. What's actually incredible about looking at this chronologically is that we can literally watch the escalation happen. We're going to track these terrifying events as they bleed from isolated, intimate bedrooms out onto totally desolate, pitch-black highways, and finally, right into what should be the safest, most technologically controlled environments of all, professional recording studios.
All right, let's get into it. Case File 01, the bedroom entity. The victim here is actress Kim Tae-hee. You know, your bedroom is supposed to be your ultimate safe space, right? But as the case notes show, it's often the very first site of vulnerability. We have a classic, incredibly terrifying buildup here. So first, she finishes this grueling shoot that stretches way into the early hours of dawn, leaving her just physically wiped out. Then comes step 2. Throughout the entire day, she has this unnerving, totally unshakable feeling of being watched. Like an entity is just stalking her every move, and eyes are literally glued to her back. Finally, she goes to bed with these severe, unexplained body aches. She's tossing and turning, finally manages to fall asleep, only to wake up to something truly horrifying.
This right here is the absolute terror of sleep paralysis crashing into a real, supernatural encounter. She snaps her eyes open, gasping for air, and finds an entity, this woman dressed entirely in black, just sitting dead weight directly on her stomach. And this wasn't some fleeting shadow in the corner of the room. The entity was physically crushing the breath out of her while making dead-on, unblinking eye contact. Just absolute visceral panic.
Moving on to Case File 02, Voices on the Highway. Our victims here are Ha Dong-hoon and Park Hae-jin.
So the phenomena start moving outward, right? Leaving the bedroom and targeting isolated vehicles on really dark roads. Let's trace this timeline. Take the case of Ha Dong-hoon, who most people know as Ha. He's totally exhausted, driving home super late from the Infinity Challenge set. Now, usually his manager drives, but the manager was sick, so Ha had to take the wheel. He's approaching this confusing fork in the pitch-black road, so he calls out to his manager, asking which way to go. He hears this very clear instruction to take a left. So he follows it, he turns left, and immediately has to swerve violently to dodge a massive, fatal head-on collision with a giant truck that just appeared out of nowhere.
He's white-knuckling the steering wheel, right? Letting out this massive sigh of relief that he literally just cheated death. But right as he exhales, this chilling, totally disembodied voice whispers right from the back seat, "Ah, what a shame, almost got them." Terrified, Ha whips his head around to look at his manager, only to find that the guy was completely passed out. Fast asleep the entire time. The voice that casually directed him into oncoming traffic wasn't human.
And the highway encounters just get worse. We have this incident involving actor Park Hae-jin. He and his manager are driving through the dead of night when they spot this really bizarre figure up ahead on the side of the road. From a distance, it looks like this tall, stunning, model-like woman hitchhiking. She's casually waving her thumb and wearing these oversized, giant black sunglasses.
But here's where the dread really sets in. As their car approaches and the headlights actually wash over this figure, they realize with absolute creeping horror that she is not wearing sunglasses. She literally has no eyes. Where her eyes should have been were just two massive, gaping black holes sunk deep into her face. They slammed on the gas and fled, realizing whatever was standing on the shoulder of that road was entirely inhuman.
Adding to this whole section of outdoor anomalies, our archives have this fragmented but just incredibly visceral report from a witness named Jung-soo. He was actively stalked by an entity that appeared as a woman in high heels, but the physics of the whole encounter just completely break down. She chased him at an impossibly unnaturally fast running speed. And the most disturbing detail? Surviving the encounter left him with this lingering phantom physical sensation, like his very spine was being violently and forcefully twisted.
Which brings us to Case File 03, the Studio Phantoms, involving Mun Hee-jun and IU.
See, the entities don't just wait around in empty bedrooms or on creepy dark highways anymore. They actually infiltrate supposedly secure, technologically controlled environments. This brings us to a massive industry phenomenon, studio ghosts. Within the Korean music scene, there is this deeply entrenched urban legend that soundproof vocal booths are literally hotspots for supernatural entities.
Because of the heavy acoustic isolation, the concentration of ghostly anomalies trapped in these tiny spaces is incredibly high.
So let's look at the timeline for music legend Mun Hee-jun. He's laying down vocals for a new track, he's inside this totally isolated vocal booth, and the audio engineers are sitting right outside, safe behind the soundproof glass. Suddenly, he starts hearing this strange, really eerie female voice bleeding directly into his audio feed. Now, he knows all the urban legends about studio ghosts, so he bravely tries to just ignore it, right? He's trying to push through the recording.
But then comes the jump scare. He's singing, and suddenly an entity literally drops from the ceiling right in front of his face. Its head is completely upside down, hovering inches from him, and it just starts singing directly into his microphone.
Utterly terrified, Mun gives the cut signal, rips off his headphones, and just bolts out of the booth to the safety of the engineers. But instead of comforting him, the audio engineer slowly looks up, glares at him with totally dead, unblinking eyes, and flatly demands to know, "Why did you stop?" The psychological manipulation here is just deeply unsettling.
And speaking of psychological manipulation, we have this intensely creepy haunting involving superstar IU during the recording of her massive hit, You and I. Tensions were already running super high in the room. Step 1. IU gets into a heated argument with composer Lee Min-soo, and it gets so bad they actually stop recording. Step 2. A friendly engineer steps in to try and mediate the situation. Step 3. While the engineer is talking, IU notices her manager standing right beside him, just nodding along enthusiastically in this highly annoying way. Frustrated, she watches the manager turn and walk into the recording booth, so step 4, she immediately follows him in there to confront him. But the sheer mind-bending terror hit her the exact second she crossed the threshold. She walked into a completely empty room. No manager, nothing. Super confused, she steps back out and asks the engineer where her manager went. The engineer just looks at her blankly and says, "What do you mean? It's just been the two of us standing here the whole time." And right at that exact moment, just to completely solidify the horror, her actual manager walks out of a totally different room way down the hall, meaning whatever she had been staring at, whatever had been nodding at her, wasn't human.
Case closed. The curse of success.
To close out these case files, we kind of have to look at the twisted silver lining the entertainment industry is actually assigned to these horrifying events. According to deeply held Korean industry lore, enduring these visual terrors and auditory nightmares is, well, it's actually considered a blessing. They call it the hit project blessing. The superstition dictates that if you experience a truly visceral ghost encounter, like hearing phantom voices or seeing upside-down entities during production, it is the ultimate, guaranteed omen that your project is going to be an explosive commercial blockbuster. Which leaves us with this final, unsettling thought to close our explainer today. We've seen the data, we've tracked the absolute panic of waking up to an entity crushing your chest, the dread of a faceless figure on a pitch-black highway, and the mind-bending reality of sharing a mic with an upside-down phantom. So I have to ask you, if extreme, spine-twisting terror is literally the required toll for a guaranteed smash hit, would you be willing to pay it? Think about that the next time you listen to your favorite track. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive, and stay curious.